This style is infinity. Cursed with the empathy. Gotta keep it moving, 7th-generation recipes. Never turn my back on my destiny. We just a God vessel, flexing all these spirit muscles, cracking all these colony puzzles. It's a small world with big trouble, so stay humble and be ready to rumble. In that concrete jungle, the move is in the struggle. The dancer's strategies emerging in the depths of the culture, working. Get connected in the sage will start burning. We've been moving.
Hello, and welcome to our Get Out the Vote rally hosted by Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. And let me just thank Sacramento Knox, who is from Detroit, an activist and rapper who opened up our show. Thank you so much, Sacramento Knox, for your music. I'm Misty Rebick, and I'll be moderating our event today. Let me just say, folks, we are 14 days out from one of the most important elections in our modern history. Donald Trump is not only threatening the integrity of our elections, but frankly, also our democracy. There is so much on the line. So that means we have to win big this election. We can't just win it, but we got to go all the way. We got to go past the finish line. In 2016, Donald Trump won Michigan by fewer than 11,000 votes. Michigan, we cannot let that happen again. And that is why we are getting together tonight, and we are partnering with Congresswoman Tlaib's Field Strategy Program. Congresswoman Tlaib's program is committed to turning out more people than before. So, and we know we can do it. In the August primary, the field team increased their turnout by 21% from 2018. So we just did this over the summer. We actually increased turnout by 21% since the 2018 primary. So what we know is in order to do that this time, it takes resources, and we've got 14 more days to dig in and do it. So tonight, while you're watching, we're going to be asking you to consider to give a donation to the work that Congresswoman Tlaib's team is leading right now in Michigan, so that we can go all the way home this election. Throughout the night, you will see a link on your screen. So chip in if you can afford it, and if you're able to. We know times are tough, and we wouldn't ask if we didn't think it was as important as it is. We also have an amazing show lined up for you. So while you are hearing about what's happening on the ground in Michigan, how we got to win Michigan, and perhaps giving to the program that's going to help us get there, we've got Bernie and Rashida who are going to be answering your election questions. And then we also have Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan's 12th district joining us, along with NFL player Ade Abushi and Academy Award-winning filmmaker Michael Moore. So we've got music, we've got film, we've got sports. We're throwing everything at you to get you fired up about this election. We are committed to turning out more voters this election than we have before. We know that Donald Trump is going to try to undermine this election. We cannot just win it. We have to win it big. So that is what we are talking about tonight here in Michigan. I want to thank everybody who is joining our program. I've seen quite a folks joining in. Say hello in the chat if you would like. And we're going to get rolling because we have a lot of amazing guests lined up for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the stars of the program, Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Well, Misty, thank you very much. And let me congratulate Rashida Tlaib for all of the great work she does. And what I love about the Congresswoman is she understands that politics is not just working in Washington, D.C. She knows we have to educate people, we have to organize people, we have to bring people together at the grassroots level to stand up and fight for justice. And that is what Rashida Tlaib has done and is doing right now. And Rashida, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening.
Thank you so much, Amo Bernie. You know how much it means to me to always have your support. I thought you were going to start off saying you love my humor, but that's okay. I know sometimes I fall short in making you laugh. I love your belly laugh. So I just thank you all so much. I know that you all know, I represent the third poorest congressional district in the country. And so if anything, this pandemic has just shown just how large the economic divide is, and just the injustices that so many of us have been facing lately. And I know that this current administration doesn't care about communities like mine, the one I represent. And you're gonna hear from my colleague, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who literally is always out in the forefront for working class and supporting our union brothers and sisters on the ground. But this election has to be too big to rig. It has to be a huge turnout, one that for me, has to speak volumes. You know, people say your vote is your voice. Well, I want the voice to be a bullhorn. I want it to be so loud and so echoey that people understand exactly what we all believe in, which is we believe that government must be about people. So I thank you all so much. And I, am so thrilled to introduce my dear, dear colleague. You know, Amo Bernie, they call us double trouble. And one of the greatest things is, we actually are real friends. We go kayak together, even though I have to do all the work when we kayak together.
That's not true.
All right, we're off and running here. Who does
So with
the real
that,
work
Debbie
on that?
Dingell,
They were
by the
taking
way, who
bets she was gonna
co-chairs
drown.
the Medicare for All caucus. So she's one of our co-chairs, big champion on Medicare for All. I so love her so much. With that, Debbie Dingell, I want to bring you into this conversation to talk about what is at stake for this election.
Oh, Rashida, it's always great to be with you. And she is my sister. She is one of the first people I talk to many mornings and almost always the last person I talk to at night. And we're always plotting good trouble. And it's such an honor to be here with Bernie, who I respect and I don't think he quite knew what to make of me when he first met me. He judged me by my pearls, and then he saw the trouble I got into, and he started judging me by what I did and not what I looked like. And Michael Moore, did you ever think you'd share something like, he always judged me by my name and not who I was. So Michael, I hope I agreed with you 4 years ago. I agree with you tonight, and we're all here because there is so much at stake. I'm going to tell you something, the future of our country is at stake. And I think the fundamental pillars of our Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of even the media, due process. And, you know, this pandemic has come at, it's shined a light on the fractures that we have. I am, as Rashida said to you, I am passionate about healthcare. I think that every American's got a right to quality healthcare, period, that no one should have to think about it. So I'm actually a bigger pain in the ass of anybody on the subject of Medicare for all, because I think the time is here. I think that it was first introduced, and I'll admit it, by my father-in-law in the early 40s, after he was one of the author of Social Security. And I know how broken the system is. I'm luckier than 99 9/10 of the people in this country. And when John was sick, there were days I'd just take my head and pound it against the wall because I couldn't make the system work. And change comes after we've been through these kinds of hard times. So we are going to win on election day. Michael and I, this is, you know, like nobody would have put a penny 10 years ago. Michael Moore and I would agree on anything, but we really did. Both were too, I mean, we agreed on a hell of a lot more, excuse my language, I always blame it on Rashida, but it really is me.
She cursed before she met me. I just want to be very clear. She totally had.
She became a good excuse for me to say I'm spending too much time with her. But Michael and I both warned people 4 years ago that Donald Trump could win, and nobody believed us. We were screaming to the winds. We can't take anything for granted. We can't. This is about our communities. So we're all here tonight because every vote matters. And as Rashida said, we can't win by little. We are not going to let them attack the integrity, and we're going to win in such numbers no one can challenge the outcome.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a Bernie. I've been going door to door. We're on thousands of doors. We just did 2,000 just alone, just a small field team that we have this past weekend. And you know what I hear from my neighbors is they understand now. They get it. These are folks that haven't voted since 2012. That's who we're talking to. I mean, we're talking about 40,000 plus less people in my district had voted in 2016. So these are folks that we know already 6,000 of them came out in the primary. So we know we got to keep going and knocking on their doors, talking to them, texting them. And I'll tell you, I talked to a mother who comes to the door. At first, the son came to the door, older gentleman. And I said, hi, I'm looking for so-and-so. He's like, well, my mom votes. And I said, where's your mother? And the mother came out and I said, you have three, these are all my sons, 3 sons. And, you know, and I know Commissioner Woods is going to talk about this, but she said, well, my other son, you know, he just got out, Rashida, he can't. I said, yes, he can. Returning citizens in Michigan can vote. And then I said, well, what's going on with the other 2? She goes, they always vote. I said, nope, they haven't voted since 2012. So I'm kind of going door to door and telling on people to their mothers. But the one thing is, you know, it's not just field organizing and doing door to door. We're like social workers. We're making sure people know where to vote, how to vote, what are their rights, all of those things that I think we're taking for granted because we know if we just provide this information to, you know, the 13 district, I know they're going to come out and vote. If we just tell them just how easy it's become in Michigan to vote, you don't need a reason to early vote. You don't need to go down to your polling location. There are 23 satellite locations in Detroit right now, Bernie, that are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. And then Saturday, Sunday, they're open 9 to 2. So we're just really trying to make this turnout large, but we also know that when we tell people they're needed, that is inspiring enough for them to go vote. I didn't
My
know.
turn.
So I would love.
You've left us speechless, Rashida.
Well, I know we know how important it is that folks come out and be inspired to vote. But you know, I am so thrilled to introduce my my good friend. I'm actually really good friends with his sister, who's running for DA in Manhattan, Tahani. But Odayabushi reached out to me. He's tired of being silent and he wants to help. And so he is a Detroit Lions NFL player. He's also Palestinian, so he's already gone up a notch with me. But what's wonderful is his father and my father come from the same village in Palestine, which really the women run that village of Beit Hanina, but we just let the men think that they run it. And he'll tell you, his mother, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. But Odayabushi, who again is with the Detroit Lions, NFL player, wants to try to inspire other people to come out and vote, and I want to introduce him. He got a great shirt. Oday, you got to show everybody your shirt. I love the shirt. Look at that. I love it. But with that, I want to introduce Odayabushi.
Thank you for that, Rashida. Thank you guys for having me. I'm a current Detroit Lions NFL player, offensive lineman. And just inspiring, this year with everything going on with the pandemic and COVID and things of that sort, and our injustices throughout the country are being brought to light. It's more than ever upon us now, especially as athletes, we feel, is to go out and vote and use our platform to continue to vote and push the narrative of unity, continue to let people know that, we are affected by everything that goes on in the community in this country. And as just like fellow humans and our fellow citizens in this country, we all feel the same about a lot of things going on in our country. And at the end of the day, this year more than ever, the NFL's rallied around getting guys to vote and getting people to vote. And just like Rashida Tlaib said, it's just getting people those information. It's getting my teammates the information. It's getting the NFL the information, letting people know about local races, presidential races, congressional races, Senate races, things of that sort, and pretty much putting that information on the radar. For a lot of guys, it was definitely out of their comfort zone, as well as myself. This is my first time kind of being in this conversation. So for me, it was a step in the right direction. I felt as doing my part as a citizen, as an American, and just continue to have that information, out there for my teammates. They constantly have questions that we try to bring answers to them. And I have questions that I try to, rely on my sister for answers and things of that sort. So at the end of the day, this is a huge presidential race for us. I know a lot of athletes feel the same about a lot of mutual things happening. And at the end of the day, it's something, as an American, one of our greatest rights is to go out there and vote and have a say in our government, and have a say in the people who run our local communities and our districts and things of that sort. So at the end of the day, we all understand that it starts with our vote if we want change, and we're all here for it.
No, thank you, Oday. I really do appreciate it. I know when you reached out, I was really inspired because I think you're like, I've never done this before, but I feel like being silent isn't an option for me anymore. And I really appreciate you using your platform to speak up and encourage folks to vote. I know Congresswoman Dingell and I are very excited to possibly get you out to especially Dearborn and other areas to maybe inspire, especially our youth and the Arab community. And I'm definitely bringing you to my neighborhood in Detroit to inspire folks. So we really appreciate everything that you're doing and for you to continue to speak up. I next want to introduce my good friend. I know Congresswoman Dingell had already introduced or talked about Michael Moore. Michael Moore was one of the first people to come out and endorse me. Senator Sanders doesn't know this, but he, first time we met technically was I was knocking doors. He had me come and meet him somewhere, but he was taking too long. And I was like, I gotta go. So I went back to the field in Redford Township in my district to go knock doors. And I get a text from some of his team members and he said, well, where are you? And I said, well, I'm in Redford Township. I'm door knocking. He's like, well, he'll come and join you. I knocked like 2 doors. The whole time Michael Moore was with me. He kept talking to everybody. It was great. People wanted to take pictures. But yeah, just a warning for all of my folks. I absolutely love Michael Moore and how he elevates the voice issues. But I will not allow him to come door knock with me again. He takes way too long, and I think he wants to interview every single person. But Michael, on a serious note, has really sparked a lot of great conversations that people don't want to have. It may be labeled as uncomfortable conversations or not, but Michael Moore has really been able to, I think, really begin debates about, I think, issues that many of my neighbors, many folks across the country are scared to talk about. So I know that he has a lot to say. He is extremely anxious about making sure that we flip Michigan. He constantly texts and asks me, how's it going? Bernie texts me, how's it going? Debbie Dingle calls and says, what do you think's happening right now? We just know that we cannot win this presidential election without Michigan. And I know that Michael knows that best. So with that, Michael Moore.
Thank you, Rashida. I and the rest of the country, and I think the rest of the world is on pins and needles right now. We're all very worried about Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. In Michigan, when Hillary lost to Donald Trump, the 10,700 votes that you referred to earlier, that's approximately 2 votes per precinct in the state of Michigan. Trump won by 2 votes per precinct. That's it. I guess what I'd like to speak to, right in the few minutes I have here, to the largest political party out there, and any of you who belong to it that are watching right now. The largest political party in America. It's not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, it's not independents, it's the non-voter. Up until the election 4 years ago, it wasn't unusual that at least 100 million Americans would not vote. 100 million Americans of voting age. I've never felt like vote shaming people who don't vote. I don't have bad feelings toward you. I get it. I know why many of you don't vote. It's not that you don't care. You care a lot. It's not that you're apathetic. You're completely tuned in to what is going on right now in this country. You gave up at some point because the system gave up on you. If you live in Flint, you know what that means. If you live in Detroit, you know what that means. A system where you can't even get clean, safe water in the richest country in the world. So why anybody would question you because you've checked out, I don't question it at all. I get it. In fact, I actually think that when you don't vote, I know it must pain you to have to stay home because you love this country. You love this country, and it's got to kill you on election day to stay home those 14 hours that the polls are open because you want to be part of this. It's your country. It affects you. And I've always considered what you do sort of an act of civil disobedience, that you refuse to participate in something that you believe is corrupt and in many ways is very corrupt and is not democratic. That you know you live in a country where the majority gender make 20 cents less on the dollar than the minority gender, men. Go through the whole list. You know it's wrong. You know you can't live on $7.25 an hour. You know before Obamacare, 50,000 Americans died for the simple and only reason that they didn't have health insurance. And still with Obamacare, another 20,000 at least a year die because we don't have a full universal health plan in this country. So I get why you on election day conduct your own sit down strike, because that's what you're sitting down and you're refusing to participate. So this is my ask of you. Just this once, just this one time, just for me. I mean, I'm holding my hand out, just for me and for everybody else, for the 40 million who live in poverty, for the 40% of the country that can't read above a 5th grade level in this country. The lack of they're called functional illiterates, but you know why this is. You know what's wrong with our education system. You live it every single day. I just want to ask you this one time, and it's me asking you. Debbie Dingle's right. I'm not usually invited to these things for good reason. All right, but I am here because we are all in the same boat together, and we are going to sink or swim on November 3rd. And I don't want to sink. I'd rather swim with you and everybody else to save this country and save this democracy. So this one time, just give it a shot. Come on out. Go now. 45 states are voting right now. Go and vote. Many states like Michigan, you can register on right up until the day of the election. Find out. Go to iwillvote.com. They'll tell you what the rules are in your state. But just give it a shot. Just this once. I got to believe. Well, number one, I know I know that the criminal in chief, the man who yesterday called Joe Biden a criminal and then called the media criminals for not reporting his lies about Joe Biden. So I know that just the removal, Trump removal, will make us better people and make us beloved around the world, just for that reason. But there are other things, and I think Bernie can speak to this because he is friends with Joe Biden. He respects Joe Biden. I've been with Joe Biden a couple of times. I will say to you, this is an honest and decent person who has actually an enormous amount of humility. And I believe that even though Joe Biden does not share our politics, those of you who voted for Bernie, progressive voters out there, Joe Biden could have picked any of a number of people. He could have gone to the right or to the left when he had a choice to pick his vice president. He went to the left. He went to, as Trump reminds us every day, he picked the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. That's saying a lot, considering Bernie is in the US Senate. So I have a lot of trust in this. I could be wrong. If I am, next time when I ask you to vote, don't do it. But this time, I can tell you that by voting for Biden, I believe this. And Rashida was on my podcast yesterday, and she said this, so I'm gonna crib it from her. She said that here's what's going to happen. We who want Medicare for all, true universal health care, whatever you want to call it, we who want a living wage, we who want a free college, all these things that were in part of Bernie's great platform, that our pressure will need to be on the United States House of Representatives and the Senate. We're going to flip in this election. We will have them. We will have the Senate and the House. They will pass the right bills. They will work it out. It may not be 100% of what we all want, but they will pass these bills. And anybody, and this is Rashida's point, was just imagine our universal health care bill comes on Joe Biden's desk to sign. Just ask yourself, do you think Joe Biden's going to sit there, look at a bill that gives every American health care, and see Joe Biden going, hell no, I'm not, what's this? I'm not signing this. It's not happening. You know.
Well, I'll tell you, Michael, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and sometimes it is those deep conversations with certain people, but for people in the 13th district and the 12th district, and I'll tell you, Congresswoman Dingell's with me, it's not necessarily that deep kind of debate that's going through people's minds. It's honestly, we forget the how-to, the simple things that people just, if they knew, they would do it, like that they can vote early, that they do you know how many people have asked me, do I need my registration card to go vote? And I said, no, you don't need to go through all of your boxes and looking for it. You don't need that. And so I think it's those simple kinds of, again, I call it putting the social work hat on, of realizing that it's the day-to-day stuff. I mean, Senator Sanders, did you know I had a senior event, and it was in this senior tower, very, met COVID guidelines, and everybody was spread out. And do you know, half a dozen, a dozen women, Puerto Rican women, Latinas, were asking me, we're Puerto Rican, can we vote? I'm still getting those kinds of basic questions that I feel very much that folks don't know about. So it's those things of, I know something's wrong and I want to speak up, and that's right. So I don't know, Congresswoman Dingell, you see it, and I know you hear it, and I know you also talk a lot to, what I call parts of, I think, southeastern Michigan that does have these kinds of deep debates, and you have Washtenaw County and a huge, college campus that folks have these deep debates. But I do think, for my district, especially in the 13th district, it is really the how-to in making sure that folks have this access to this information. I can't stress to you all, people's like, well, I haven't changed my address. I said, guess what? Michigan, it's gotten easier. If you go to the polling location, they can do it all for you right there, and you'll be able to vote. And so I don't know, Debbie, if you wanted to talk a little bit more about these conversations you're having, because those are the ones I'm having, are more of, they get it, they know what's at stake. They're just grabbing the map from me of where the voting locations, they're grabbing the information, their voting guide that you just mailed. You said that's the most popular, mailer that you sent out recently to thousands of people in your district. Talk a little bit about that, because I want folks that are listening to know this, because I know they know 5 people. If they text them, they give them that information, that's 5 more voters. I know that's how I work in my family, being the eldest of 14, is I know there's those that I have to text, stalk, make sure that they actually have the information to go vote. And so Debbie, talk a little bit more about that, because I know you and I have been doing a lot of that outreach.
So I think none of us are monolithic. So you are correct, Rashida, that a lot of people, where people are voting has changed. They don't know that there are additional hours if they work. They don't know if they can get there. And we have those issues. But first of all, Michael, I'm the one that never thought I would be invited to be with you. I'm always the one that I felt like the little kid that wasn't liked. So I'm so honored to be with you and Bernie and Rashida tonight. I can't tell you. But there also, I know a lot of people that are like what Michael said. They think their vote doesn't matter. They're sick of the process. I can't tell you how long people were tired of what they call partisan bickering. That's not what we have right now. We have a government that people don't care about. Michael's right that choosing to not participate is making a choice this year. He said it nicer. And it is people just, if they don't think that they can make a difference, they think their vote doesn't matter, they don't make the effort to do it. But this year, I hope to God, this is the last election that is this important in anybody's lifetime, whether you're a first-time voter, or Michael Moore and I are the same age too, by the way, and we'll just leave ourselves at we were born the same year. I've never forgotten that. But I think what we have to do is just everybody has to vote. And we got to help those that don't know how to do it. And we have to help those that have a million reasons why they're mad at somebody. They think it doesn't matter. It does matter. And you got to vote like your life depends on it this year, because it does.
Let me just, if I could, Rashida, take the discussion in a little different way. And I think you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people who are intimidated by the process, who don't know how the process works, who think for whatever reason they're not eligible to vote. But what I want to say to those people, picking up on what I thought was Michael's very profound statement, is there are people out there who quite intentionally don't want you to vote. They're spending huge amounts of money to do everything possible to prevent you from voting. And by that, I mean not just in Michigan, I mean all over this country, putting up all kinds of roadblocks. Why is that? Because they are content with a government which is dominated by big money interests who control what goes on in Washington, D.C. So right now, in the middle of this pandemic, if you are a multi-billionaire, the likelihood is you are not only doing wonderfully, you're probably doing better than you've ever done in recent years. Billionaires are making all kinds of money. But what happens if you're that average worker in Michigan or in Vermont? Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you don't have any health care right now. Maybe you can't afford to buy food that your kids need. There was a piece in the paper today, 1.5 million people in New York City are struggling to put food on the table. That means tens of millions of Americans. So what this campaign is about is doing our best to create a government that works for ordinary people and not just wealthy campaign contributors. And in practical terms, what does it mean? I was in Michigan a number of years ago with the late John Conyers. And Rashida, that was your seat, right? You won John's seat.
Yeah.
And
it'll always be John's seat, but yeah.
He was there for a long time. And we held a meeting with young people. I'll never forget, young people who were talking about working at McDonald's for minimum wage. They couldn't even get 40 hours a week, 20 hours a week, getting on a bus, going to another McDonald's, maybe going to 3 McDonald's, trying to put together enough money to stay alive. Talking to people who have no health insurance, talking about people who are leaving school deeply in debt. So in concrete terms, what we are trying to do is raise that minimum wage, $15 an hour. That's not a lot. Probably have to go higher than that. Make it easier for you to join a union. Michael talked about equal pay for equal work. Sound like a radical idea? That women should earn the same amount of money as men? creating millions of jobs, rebuilding our infrastructure. We all know the horror of the water situation in Flint. But the truth is that exists in many parts of this country. We can create millions of jobs, rebuilding our water systems, our wastewater plants, our roads, and our bridges. Young people should not have to leave college deeply in debt. That's why we want to make public colleges and universities tuition-free. And Debbie Dingle and Rashida have both worked very, very hard on Medicare for all. I'm going to mention this. Today I was doing a Zoom with a woman named Dua, I'm not quite sure I know, it's D-U-A, I think. She's a very well-known international entertainer from Great Britain. And we were talking about healthcare, and she said, I don't understand how in the United States you have so many people who have no health insurance. Here in the UK, anybody goes to any doctor you want, you go to the hospital, you don't have to take out your wallet. You don't take out your credit card. So I want to just mention to the folks in Michigan and around the country, we are the odd guys out. Every other major country guarantees healthcare to all people as a human right. And Debbie and Rashida and I and more people in the Congress are going to fight for a Medicare for all single payer system. And we will succeed because the current system is so wasteful, so dysfunctional, so cruel that it has got to be changed. So what I'm suggesting here, if you're a working person, if you are a lower income person, this election is about whether or not you're going to be able to live with dignity, whether or not you're going to have a government representing your interest and not just the people on top.
Great. So we do have some folks who sent in some questions. Since we did name this, Bernie and Rashida answer your election questions. Let's go to a few folks who are actually able to tune in live right now. Our first guest who has a question for us is Keon Franks, and Keon is a high school senior at Henry Ford Academy in Dearborn, and he's tuning in from Detroit right now. So welcome to the show, Keon, and what's your question for the panel?
My question for the panel is, what do you think about police brutality, and how should you stop it to protect our community better?
Well, I don't know if Bernie, if you want to go, and I know Congresswoman Dingle can also talk, but I hope you check out the Movement for Black Lives. Movement for Black Lives, many of them are mothers who lost their children to police brutality. And they are pushing for and starting a movement even at the local level. So getting your local Detroit City Council or your local, wherever community you're with, to support the Breathe Act. And the Breathe Act really comes from a lot of the uprising you see for Black Lives Matter. And it is very truthful about the systems that are in place. And they're so focused. What I love, Keon, is they're not focused on just who killed George Floyd or Sandra Bland or the many names out there of the lives lost to police brutality and violence, but they're also talking about what killed George Floyd. What are those systems that are in place that has set it up where something like that was even possible in our country? And so check out the Breathe Act. Know that this is something that you got to push and continue, because I don't know if you've ever heard me, Keon, talk about this, but transformative change really happens on the streets when you were organizing. That's how the labor rights movement happened, the right to vote happened, the Civil Rights Act, all happened because people on the streets demanded it, and it finally reached Congress, and then they finally acted. But please check it out. The Breathe Act to me is really towards the direction I think that tears down those systems that have been set up against our Black neighbors in our country.
Well, let me just add to what Rashida said, Keon, by saying this. The federal government has a very powerful role to play through carrots and sticks, through incentives and disincentives. But the bottom line is we want a local police department to reflect the community itself, what the community looks like. And we also must make sure that police officers are held accountable. If a police officer breaks the law, if a police officer commits murder, that police officer must be held accountable. And more broadly speaking, above and beyond police departments, we need to get a handle on a criminal justice system, which is not only broken, but clearly racist, in which we have more people in jail today, over 2 million, than any other country on earth, including China. And that means that we have got to start investing in our communities, in good paying jobs, in decent educational opportunities for our young people, rather than in more jails and in more incarceration.
Did anybody else want to chime in from the panel on this point that Keon is asking? What do you think about police brutality and how should it be handled to protect our community?
I mean, I'll quickly say that I think Bernie and Rashida were dead right. Probably not the right word to use, but we also in the House passed the George Floyd bill, which would do exactly what Bernie said, so that when you have a police officer that has had 18 previous incidences, when you transfer to another police department, it's not reported or someone doesn't know. So we need to hold them accountable. But systematic racism is a problem in this country. And we need leaders that aren't afraid to have that uncomfortable conversation, because unfortunately, some people don't want to talk about truths. And if we saw it in 2 videos in the same week in Wisconsin, where a Black man was shot in the back 7 times with his 3 children watching, and no one can still explain to me today why. And that same week, a 17-year-old white boy walked down the street with an assault weapon, had shot and murdered 2 people, and was offered water and not stopped. That's a story that all of us in America should see, and we need to have that conversation. Why? I had a friend who always was the one that his friends that went to school together had him drive because he was white and they were Black, and the police would not stop them if he was driving. That's such a basic thing in this country. I went to a class where someone was teaching what to do if you're stopped by a policeman. I never have to think that way. We need people to understand what's happening in America and how we work on it together to fix it.
Thank you, Congresswoman Dingell. We have another person tuning in live, also tuning in from Detroit. I'd like to welcome to the show Daryl Woods, who is a returning citizen joining us, like I said, from Detroit. So welcome to the show, Daryl, and introduce yourself and ask your question of the panel.
Absolutely. My name is Daryl Woods. I was recently incarcerated. I was released in 2019 after serving 29 years. Originally sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Got out 2019, hit the ground running, connected with organizations like the Detroit Recovery Project and other organizations who helped me somewhat with my transition. And I am very appreciative of my freedom. But the question I have is dealing with the issue that the president so disrespectfully went against Vice President Biden's son for having a substance abuse disorder. And I thought that was sickening and demonic. And so what I want to ask is, a major barrier in the criminal justice system is the lack of resources for the appropriate community-based reentry programs. Programs like the Detroit Recovery Project are working tirelessly to provide counseling and housing and jobs and substance abuse services and much more with very little help. Programs like this need a real partner in the federal government to help return citizens and those on probation with meaningful opportunities and resources. Would you all provide more assistance to organizations under the Biden team and moving forward?
Let me just jump in, Daryl. And first of all, welcome back. And thank you so much for using your own life experience in trying to create a climate for people who are getting out of jail to make sure that they don't go back to jail again. The rate of recidivism in this country is much, much too high. Too often we release people from prison and they return to the same environment and the same situations which got them in trouble in the first place. So to answer your question, when we talk about criminal justice reform, that is certainly one of the major things that we are talking about. So when somebody leaves jail, we got to figure out how we get them a meaningful job and income and decent housing. And if they have had drug abuse problems, how we make sure that we deal with that, how we make sure that they get the education that they need so they can get the good jobs that are out there. It is an enormously important issue, and it's something that we will address under a Biden administration.
Yeah, and I think, Daryl, you know where I stand. I mean, I've toured Detroit Recovery Project. My district would benefit tremendously if we invested more into programs like that really has the wraparound services that are needed. But I also want to just speak truth about the fact that we have to end, the for-profit schemes that are embedded into mass incarceration. The fact that there are for-profit schemes that continue to criminalize returning citizens. I mean, there seems to be in the corrections budget is like the #1 line budget in the state of Michigan. It's the #1 budget in the state of Michigan, and I can't get clean water, into 60 of the schools literally around this neighborhood that I live in. And so it is so important that we also recognize that we're not investing enough in neighborhoods and communities, that we're not investing enough and especially communities that are facing just, high levels of poverty, decay, not investment enough in equity education funding. We all know that, Daryl, it's like we've already cut off so many of our youth away from opportunities because we haven't addressed poverty in so many of our neighborhoods. So I also want to push back and say, I'm tired of us criminalizing the poor. I'm tired of us over criminalizing those, especially now, our state finally passed a proposal by the people. The legislature wouldn't do it. I sat there for 6 years. No one would have the courage to legalize marijuana, and looking at it in a different perspective of that. And that alone, decriminalization that needs to happen, I think, with a lot of different processes. And Daryl, like, I've seen children being ripped away from their mothers being punished because they couldn't afford to pay their water bill. That is the kind of criminalization that happens. They're considered neglecting their children when they just can't afford it. And we see it with people that can't afford, they get tickets driving, they can't afford the fines. And then I get a call and they're like, Rashida, I got to get to work. I can't afford the high fines, and it's all interconnected. And so just know, with the Biden administration, if anything, I know they're going to lead with compassion. They're going to listen to people's lived experiences and act. Where right now there is a wall around the White House. I feel like we can't even get through that wall to even have a conversation about these broken systems.
That's right, Congresswoman. And these are the issues that are on the ballot. And that is why we're hosting this event tonight. We're going to take a few more questions, but I just want to take a moment to remind you that we have to turn the vote out more than we ever have before. And to do that, it takes resources. So if you are watching, if you care about the issues that Daryl and Keon just brought up, I'm asking you to consider donating tonight to help us win big in Michigan. So you can do that on your screen. You'll see you can chip in right there. But I do want to bring us to our next question, tuning in from Inkster, Michigan, Pastor Jean Overman. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Senator Bernie Sanders and my Congresswoman from the mighty 13th, Rashida Tlaib, and my dear friend Debbie. I'm Jean Overman, Executive Director of Operation Refuge in the city of Inkster. But today I'm an Executive Director for Western Wayne Family Health Center. And we are FQHC, a little nervous here. And I really want to talk about the help we need as far as Medicaid expansion and access for all. And if we can't get that, can we get where this Trump administration, at the end of every budget, we are talking about a funding cliff. We have no way to really plan and have strategies to bring proper health care for all. If possible, we could get a 5-year budget plan in place. Is this something that we would be able to do when we win this election?
Well, let me jump in here, Jane, because if the Democrats gain control over the Senate, and by the way, we need you folks in Michigan to support Gary Peters. He's an excellent United States Senator. and his victory will make it easier for us to do all that has to be done. But I will be chairman, I believe, of the subcommittee on health. I have worked my entire career to substantially increase funding for community health centers, which are so important because they not only provide the health care, they provide dental care, they provide mental health counseling and lower cost prescription drugs. So Jane, let me just say this. It would be my intention to fight, and I'll have something to say about this, to make sure that we greatly expand the number of community health centers and we increase funding for the existing community health centers. Because in the middle of a dysfunctional healthcare system where so many people are uninsured or underinsured, cannot afford the high cost of prescription drugs, community health centers are the backbone of our primary healthcare system. My goal is to say that anybody in America, no matter where you're living, in Detroit or in rural America, you will have the opportunity to get into a doctor's office in a community near where you live. And that's what we've got to do. So, Jane, thank you for that very important question. It speaks to the crisis in primary healthcare, the need to substantially increase funding for the community health center program in America.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Dingell, you've spoken a lot about healthcare tonight. Do you want to chime in on that one as well? Oh, you're on mute.
I think it's a very important question. I think the senator was right on point. I mean, what worries me greatly is that the Community Health Centers Fund is currently set to expire on December 11th, and we can't play games with this.
Right.
We passed a bill in the House 5 months ago that would have given almost an additional $8 billion in funding to these health centers, and they desperately need it. They are really the only place where so many people in this pandemic have been able to get help. And even when we talk about funding Medicaid expansion, Michigan was able to establish Healthy Michigan because of federal funds that came to the state. More than 750,000 Michiganders were able to get access to healthcare that didn't, but because of the need, because there have been so many more people that have been having to access it, we need to get more federal money to this program and other states around the country. And while the senator's going to be our leader, I'm going to be leading in the House to support him and to make sure we are funding all of these programs and expanding them, because they are the only place that too many people in America can get health care. And I know the work you do, as you know, Reverend, because we work together.
Amazing. Well, thank you to our live question askers. Thank you for tuning in and taking the time to join the show. I did want to ask a few more. We just have a little bit of time, but I wanted to ask this question, which came in from Joshua. He said, in addition to voting, if we could do one thing that would help in this election, what would that be? So Rashida, you're running one of the most aggressive field programs out there right now, which you can donate to if you're watching. So please consider donating. What can folks do besides voting?
I mean, look, you got to work your block. What I mean that is not your physical block. There are people in your community that are in your network. I don't care if it's your cousin, your coworker, your classmate, you name it. I just talked to a friend the other day who's working on getting the Michigan Supreme Court Justice candidates McCormick and Welch, both are Democratic nominees, elected, which is so important. I mean, these are the folks that just said Governor Whitmer, all her executive orders to protect us from COVID and the spread of COVID, they threw that out and said no, and of course we're working with the health department to reinstitute a lot of those policies she had in place, but it's because we don't have a fair and just, Michigan Supreme Court. So he's working on this, right? He says to me, Rashida, I couldn't believe it. My neighbor came over and said, hey, who do I support for Michigan Supreme Court? And he goes, I didn't even think to tell my neighbor. Well, guess what? This is the campaign I'm working for. I mean, I think we're underestimating the network we're already part of. These are the people that trust you all already. These are the folks that I know. I'm telling you, if you stalk them, you text them, you call them, they're going to vote. Alday knows there's these 5 cousins. I have 200 of them. I'm sure he has double that. But I have these 200 cousins. They already, 3 or 4 of them already text me, hey, Rashida, who do I vote for? That's how they talk, Bernie. And I was like, this is who you vote for. And then just reminding them, well, don't mail it. Go drop it off at here's the closest one. I send them I'm like, this is the closest place. So I want you to try to be a bit of a social worker, a bit of a mama bear, a bit of that kind of big brother, big sis mode of making sure, just hold their hand through this process, sometimes physically, but really trying to get them this information. You'll be so surprised how many folks still don't fully understand the process and where to go. And it isn't just an intimidation. I know Senator Sanders talked about that. It's just not readily available. It really isn't. And that's where you all come in. So that's what you can do, is just really do that. And if anybody else has any other comments about what else to do.
Jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking off Congressman Tlaib, a lot of my teammates, when it came to voting and things of this situation, had these conversations, they just didn't know where to start, right? And then once you kind of got them along, and I'm like, hey, this is what you're looking for. What do you want to get out this election? What are you truly fighting for? What means the most to you? And you kind of start laying out their options. Did it with my teammates, did it with my position group, and we kind of just talked about it, like, hey, certain interests is what you got going on and who you want to vote for, and this is how you do it, and this is the information you needed, and this is the tools you'll need to vote, and pretty much just kind of like Congresswoman Tlaib said, stay on top of people. I've become a little bit of a social worker myself, as far as trying to educate my teammates, my coaches, our front office people that we have in these Zoom meetings that we have these conversations about, and just letting people know that at the end of the day, it's definitely not a simultaneous process for a lot of people, being that this is the first time for a lot of my teammates voting and a lot of my local friends voting. But at the end of the day, it's us doing the uncomfortable work, the uncommon work that we normally aren't used to doing, in the social work that we are asked to do, that by really default, to go out there and do that and push each other to vote and make our voice heard.
Well, they use the right word. I mean, sometimes it is uncomfortable to do what's important. I mean, if you're knocking on doors, sometimes it's uncomfortable who's going to be at the other side of the door. But in this extraordinarily important moment in American history, you got to do what O'Day is saying. And that is, you got to do something that's uncomfortable. You're saying, well, do people really want me to be talking about them voting? Why am I doing that? You're doing that because this country is in trouble and we need their vote, and they cannot sit it out. So even if it's a bit uncomfortable, it is enormously important for you to do that. And Rashida's point is exactly right. There are a lot of people who do not vote. And get on the phone, explain to them. They will be, in many cases, sympathetic to your worldview, to your positions, but they're just intimidated for whatever reason about voting, or for whatever reason choose not to vote. And you've got to make the case as to how important their vote is. So the word is, get beyond the uncomfortable, go out and do it, get your friends in your circle to participate in the political process.
Senator, when we were training organizers back in Iowa, we used to say, you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So with that, I'm very excited to kind of help folks who are watching, whether you live in Michigan or not. That is the thing. We've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. It requires just being a little bit uncomfortable, and you've been there before. You will recover. You are resilient. You are strong. You can do it. And so with that, we're going to let Oscar, who is working night and day with Rashida to turn out that extra 21% we need to turn out in Michigan to win big on election day. Oscar is going to tell you how to turn out to vote and what it takes to get a little bit uncomfortable and help others turn out to vote. So Oscar, to you.
Thanks, Misty. Hey, everyone. This has been an amazing program with such great conversations and great information about voting. So my name is Oscar. I'm the field director for the Rashida for Congress campaign, and it's my turn to ask you to take action tonight to ensure that we take our country back. My team, my amazing field team, has been putting the work down on the ground. And like the Congresswoman said, our team's been talking to voters who feel disenfranchised, who feel apathetic to the process. These residents last voted in 2012 and sat out 2016. In our district, like she said, there was 44,000 of them. So, my friends, my first ask, we need you to help our team to call these residents and ask them how they're doing, and then have a great conversation about how they can vote early. So please sign up at the link that I think is in the chat or on the screen, because we really need your help to talk to these residents, to remind them that their vote is so important. Who would you like to FaceTime with? Our friends at Vote Tripling have been helping us
Who would you
to
like
talk
to
to so many
FaceTime with?
campaigns and talk to friends of their neighbors and remind them to talk to their loved ones to vote. Second ask, everyone, please grab your phones right now. Open up your Messenger app and let's go ahead and find 3 friends and let's tell them to vote early now. Okay, you are the best influence with your circle, with your friends, with your families. So one more time, please pick up your phone, turn on the Messenger app, open up the Messenger app, whichever it is, text 3 friends to vote early now. And our friends at Vote Tripling can help you out to remind them. So you can text Tripling as well, the Vote Tripling, to 55222, and our friends at Vote Tripling will help your friends and your loved ones remember to vote before Election Day. And last, to all my Michiganders out there, please visit mi.gov/vote for all your voter information. If you need to register to vote or request an absentee ballot or return your absentee ballot, you can find out where at mi.gov/vote. You can find your clerk's office or satellite locations all at mi.gov/vote. Thanks so much for your time, and I'm passing it back to Congresswoman Tlaib and Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you so much, Oscar. Yes, my field team has been out. Great conversations, but we also been following up on making sure we text and call. So you can even volunteer to do that if you don't feel comfortable going door to door and having these conversations, but you can do it through texts and calls. What I love is that we're doing wellness checks as we are going to ask people to vote. And it's been extremely, I think comforting for folks because we actually are doing constituent services. I think Bernie and Debbie know what I'm talking about. I mean, folks were calling and saying, hey, Rashida, my garbage didn't get picked up this week. Do something about it. I'm like, yeah, I will. Where are you going to go vote? You got that information? Great. And we're able to at least do a lot of that. And I jokingly tell my field organizers again that I'm also training them to be the social workers that they need to be in a district like ours. But it's also really fun. This becomes your chosen family when you do go out and do this. And I think, my one of my team members, Rashida, said this beautifully. She always starts with this premise of how do you want to feel the day after the election? How do you want to feel? And you want to feel like you did everything you were supposed to do to make sure you showed up for your neighbors, making sure that you're turned out your block of folks that you know, and did everything you were supposed to do to making sure that our voice was loud like a bullhorn. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with, again, the progress we've had. We're already seeing people as we go door to door. Probably half of the folks we talk to are already planning to vote, already have their ballots ready to do it. And then when we provide that extra information of where they can actually drop it off, that, you could tell folks are like, thanks, I didn't know that's where I can drop it off around the corner at a church where there's a secured ballot box drop off. But yeah, I'm really excited. And thank you, Amma Bernie, for your partnership in making sure we flip Michigan.
Well, thank you, Rashida, and let me thank all of the panelists and the questioners. This is a campaign not only to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, it is a campaign to begin to revitalize American democracy, to tell every working person, every low-income person, you are an American. You are not only entitled to vote, and you must take advantage of that, you're entitled to live your lives with a decent standard of living. So what Rashida is trying to do in Detroit, what I try to do in Vermont, what Debbie is trying to do in her district is to bring people into the political process in order for us to create a government that is based on justice, that works for all. So Rashida, it's been a lot of fun tonight, and Debbie and everybody else, thank you for the great work you are doing. Just to repeat, you all heard it. Michigan is key to this election. If Trump wins Michigan, we're gonna have a hard time defeating him. So you gotta make sure that he is defeated in Michigan. Let's elect Joe Biden. Let's begin the process of transforming this country.
Thank you, Adai. Michael, thank you for always coming through. And Congresswoman Dingell, thank you for always being an amazing sister in service. And thank you for my team and Bernie's team. We got your back. We just need you all to come out to vote. We got your back, both in the Senate and in the House. So thank you again. Have a good evening. Be safe out there.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And to finish our program, we have a brief video with some organizers right on the ground there in Michigan who are working so hard to do what we've been talking about. Thank you for joining and have a good night. Donate if you can.
Donald Trump has affected people in my community. The food banks and the food pantries are overwhelmed. People are on edge and not knowing if they're going to have health care.
People are really concerned about the care or lack of care from COVID. A lot of people are concerned with, will they get any type of financial assistance? That's kind of gone dormant.
Before Donald Trump, there was racism. However, he normalized it.
The current person sitting in that seat is a hateful person, and we see that definitely here in the state of Michigan, and the attacks on our governor and anyone who disagrees with him.
It seems like he never supports the underdog. He always stands up for what's wrong, such as obvious, blatant police brutality. He seems to just want to light a fire under everything that causes separation in our country.
We lost by less than 11,000 votes. That means that we have those people. Those people need to get out and vote. But it's not just a presidential election.
Affordable health care, that's really on the ballot. A woman's right to choose is on the ballot. This election is the most important election, even of my lifetime.
We saw what happened in 2016, and this is what we're dealing with.
We have to bring the country back to a healing where people listen to one another, not with riot gear, not with guns, not with threats, where they feel like my voice matters again.